Hello and welcome to the February 18th edition of Speedway Digest, Thursday Night Thunder, the most hardcore motorsports program on the internet. This is episode 200 of the series. Tonight, we'll be reviewing some of the past few weeks of motorsports action, reviewing upcoming events, and discussing whatever other racing news pops into the conversation. We're currently standing by for our co-host online. It looks like she is here, so let's see if we can get this going, shall we? Keep in mind, this is our first broadcast officially of this season, so there are probably going to be a couple little gremlins here and there, but hopefully everything will work. We're still standing by to get everything all hooked up and ready to go. Fleet will be set momentarily. While we're standing by trying to get this figured out here, let's go ahead and listen to one of our songs from Ron Passan and the Pit Crew. This is Gentleman Champion, if I can find it. There it is. Well, our co-host is still having a few connection issues. Let's go ahead and move on to the program for a moment. We might end up being a really short show tonight. I know we do have a lot of people here in the studio. Great thing. Let's go ahead and get started, and hopefully everything works itself out. If it does not, we will go ahead and try again next week. With a gaggle of trucks wrecking behind him as the field approached the finish line, Ben Rhodes shot past Corey Roper in the trioval of Daytona National Speedway to win Friday night's next year Entry 250, the 2021 season opener for the NASCAR Emerald Truck Series. With a decisive push from ThorSport Racing teammate Matt Crafton on the final lap from an overtime run, Rhodes had more than enough momentum to shoot past Roper in the final 400 yards. Likewise, Jordan Anderson blew past Roper into second place, 0.36 seconds behind the winner, as Roper held for a third career best result. The win was the first for ThorSport after an off-season switch from Ford to Toyota. Without Kraft himself, Rhodes said he couldn't have claimed his first win at Daytona and the fourth of his career. Anderson was a close runner-up for the second straight year, matching his career best finish. A multi-car wreck on lap 95 of 100 ended the winning chances of a handful of contenders. Chandler Smith spun into the infield, and behind him, a vicious crash ended the race for Tyler Ankrum and heavily damaged the trucks of Timothy Peters, Austin Hill, and three-time winner Johnny Sauter. The trucks of Sunoco rookie Carson Honevar and John Hunter Nemechek also were victims of the crash. They recovered to finish 5th and 7th, respectively. Ryan Truex ran 4th, followed by Hocevar, defending series champion Sheldon Creed, Nemechek, Cody Rohrbach, Smith, and Drew Dollar. Crafton, a three-time series champion, was collected in the overtime wreck and finished 15th. 28 laps later, he was part of the wreck that eliminated a pair of strong entries. With trucks running in a perilous four-wide array in lap 72, Crafton nosed up the track after a slight tap from Nemechek and bumped the left rear quarter of Todd Gilliland's Ford. Gilliland spun and collected the trucks of Stuart Friesen and Tate Fogelman behind him, and in the process, Brett Moffitt's Chevrolet was pinched into the outside wall. The trucks of Gilliland and Friesen were wrecked too severely to continue. For the first time in 6 years, 2012 Series champion James Butcher was out of the event before he reached the start-finish line to begin the race. With his number 44 Nice Motorsport Chevrolet destroyed in a Ford truck wreck right after the initial start, Butcher exited without completing a single lap. Joining him on the sidelines were Tanner Gray, who spun during the early incident, and Gus Dean, whose truck was damaged too badly to continue. Derek Kraus recovered from a spin in that early crash, what was to become an adventuresome night for the driver of the number 19 Toyota. Kraus caused 2 more accidents, with spins that collided with a truck of Sunoco rookie Chris Wright on pit road before taking his truck to the garage in 33rd place. For more information about the events taking place at Daytona National Speedway this season, including the ones from this weekend, stay connected with Daytona National Speedway on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Our first 2 guests this evening are Deborah Hunt and Scott Murphy, authors of a picture book, biography of the legendary Dale Earnhardt Jr. Dale Earnhardt Sr., excuse me. I knew that was going to happen. Dale Earnhardt Sr. came from humble beginnings and often had little to no money at the start of his career. He may have passed away in 2001. However, his memory lives on in the hearts and minds of millions and millions of fans, as he is considered one of the greatest race car drivers in the history of NASCAR. His legacy lives on in his story of humble beginnings. Challenges and triumphs can serve as an inspiration to all of us and highlights the importance of never giving up on one's dreams. Dale Earnhardt's greatest triumph and tragic death both occurred at the Daytona 500 in 1998, when after 20 years he finally won, and sadly, in 2001, when he crashed and lost his life during the final lap. When he was racing with his son, Dale Earnhardt Jr., who along with his family continues the legacy of the Intimidator, aka Dale Earnhardt. Hopefully, we're going to be able to connect to all of our guests this evening. We're going to try to make things a little bit smoother by the interview basically split in half, first chatting with Dr. Hunt, and then going on to Mr. Murphy. Let's go ahead and see if we can get this working. Give me 1 second here. Again, this is a new experiment for us on Podbean Live. We're trying new different things because we did have some problems with the Blog Talk Radio in the past. But unfortunately, this is a work in progress as well, and it's not working quite as well as I hoped. But it is. I do have hope that we will get it figured out. Once again, I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in this evening. We're going to go ahead and take a short musical break once again and listen to Hot Lap My Ashes by Ron Zana and the Pit. As our musical things seem to be going a little weird, and we're trying to get connected.
Adam?
Hello, Scott. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Awesome. This is a whole new experience for me here. I've tried some of these shows in the past, but it's basically just been me talking to myself. So it's great to have somebody calling in, and hopefully the connection is pretty good on your end. It sounds good to me here.
It sounds good. Thanks for having us on, Adam. I don't know if Deborah was able to connect in or not.
Dr. Hunt hasn't been able to connect yet, but she's trying, and hopefully we'll get something figured out momentarily. But first off, let me ask you, what inspires your work?
I've always enjoyed writing, and it was a nice mix that when Deb and I collaborated together with this book. I grew up in Richmond, Virginia, and of course, just engrossed with NASCAR all around. It was just a part of growing up, and then with writing, it just merged in together, and we came together and wrote this book, one of our big loves.
And how do you go about researching the book?
Well, thank God for the internet. So a lot of that was done on the internet with both of us looking into different writings and publications and things like that and putting it together.
Growing up, who was your favorite race car driver?
I would have to say, of course, Dale, and then Dale Jr. I think that Dale Jr. really followed very well in his father's footsteps. I know he's not racing anymore. I know he's retired, but he was just an amazing person. You know, just what he had been through, and especially this with his last accident with the airplane, and was able to walk out of that was just amazing. So I have to say Dale Jr.
has Dale Jr. seen the book?
Not that I know of. I know Deb and I have tried to reach out, and we're continuing to through social media and things like that, and through the foundation. So we're hoping to get a book out there to him. We really are. We would be
my final
honored.
Question for you. It'd be interesting to see what his perspective is of it, because he's had
I know,
a huge shadow to live up to throughout his career, and he's done a pretty good job at it. So
exactly.
And how different do you think the auto racing world would be if Dale had survived?
I think it would. There's a huge difference, and I think mostly it's the safety. I just don't think things would be quite as safe, or as not have been implemented as quickly due to his catastrophic accident. I know that after his crash, NASCAR began requiring the use of the head and neck restraints that tethered the helmet to the seat to keep the head from moving forward or from side to side, and there were some changes in the turns and things like that. So I think just the safety aspect, it started a lot earlier after his accident. And another thing, Adam, I'm sorry, when I was growing up in Richmond, I was actually able to. I was a EMT. I was actually able to go to one of the Richmond International races as a medic at one of the turns, which just really jump-started this whole thing too.
And I'm going to try and toss it out to my co-host, Mykkal Mulalley-Kapalo in Afraid of Washington, to see if she's able to get connected. It says she's connected up here, but it doesn't mean anything. So we'll see if that happens, and she has some question for you as well.
All righty.
Okay, can you hear me?
Sounds great.
Okay, good. I'm glad. Okay, so my first question for you, what was the most surprising thing you learned while creating the book?
I think probably Dale's commitment to serving the community and people who were less fortunate. He did a lot of things for children, the environment, and things like that. So researching this book really brought that to light, how much he, all the good that he did.
And how many books have you written? And of those books, which is your favorite?
This is actually my first. So this is my premiere book with Dr. Hunt. And so it's going to be, this book is my favorite.
And what is your favorite thing to do when you're not writing stories?
Currently, I'm living in Long Island, New York. So the summers out here are beautiful. I'm close to the beach. I've got 2 teenage boys that keep me very busy. So I try to get out as much as I can and enjoy the beach and the weather and things like that in the summertime.
And when did you first realize that you wanted to be an author?
I think it was something I've always enjoyed doing and really never thought about it. I always enjoyed just note-taking and journaling and things like that. And then later in life, when I started working with Deb on another publication that we did, just really realized how much I liked it. So you're never too old, and it's never too late to start something.
I like that. And my final question for you this evening, can you tell us how the steps to getting a book published?
That is probably one of the most difficult things, is the publication, getting it published. Deb and I had reached out to multiple publishers, and it's just getting out there, and you've just got to keep trying. You've just got to just be determined and don't give up, because we had a lot of publishers who did turn us down at first, and we just kept trying and finally found one. So don't give up.
Well, I'd like to thank you very much for coming on the show this evening. I apologize for the little bit of technical issues, and I'm sorry that Dr. Hunt wasn't able to join us tonight. But hopefully we can get her on the program sometime in the near future, and we can.
I'd love that.
And we can figure something out from there.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you for having me. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. And how would people go about getting the Dale Earnhardt lesson?
You can we've got it on Amazon. Where would be the
best place to look for
that? You go on Amazon and look for it. It's going to be at Barnes and Noble online, and I think some other places. So if you just do a Google search, it should take you to one of those sites.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining us, and have a great evening.
Thank you again. Thanks for having us, Adam. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Austin Cindric took up where he left off in 2020. The reigning NASCAR Xfinity Series champion held off Brett Moffitt and Harrison Burton in a 2-lap NASCAR overtime dash to win Saturday's action-filled Beef What's for Dinner 300 at Daytona National Speedway, the season opener.
Cindric, who locked up the Xfinity title by winning in his last outing at Phoenix Raceway in November, picked up his first victory on the 2.5-mile Daytona Oval and the 9th of his career in the number 22 Team Penske Ford.
The runner-up result was a career best for Moffitt, who previously had one top 5 in the series, 5th at Talladega. Jeb Burton, Harrison's cousin, ran 4th despite sustaining minor damage in the nose of his number 10 Chevrolet in a 3-car incident that caused the night caution on lap 114 of the schedule 120 and set up the overtime. A.J. Allmendinger was 5th, followed by Brendan Brown, Myatt Snyder, Brendan Jovic in his first career top 10, Dan Hammer, and Jason White.
With 15 laps left, contact between the Joe Gibbs racing cars of Ty Dillon and Daniel Hemrick rewrote the story of the race. Dillon moved up the track between cars running in the inside and outside lanes, but when he tried to complete a pass of Hemrick, he turned across the nose of Hemrick's number 18 Toyota and spun, igniting a chain reaction wreck that eliminated a handful of potential race winners and probable championship contenders. Destroyed were the junior motorsports cars of Justin Allgaier and Josh Berry, and the number 11 Colleague Racing Chevrolet of Justin Haley, who is trying to win his 4th straight Xfinity Series Super Speedway race, an achievement only Dale Earnhardt Jr. had accomplished previously.
Allgaier saw it differently, unfortunately. He wrecked the whole field, Allgaier said. He made a statement, unfortunately, guys were trained to make moves, veterans who should know better, and making bad decisions. On lap 75, 9 seconds after restart began in the final stage, the pit window opened, and all hell broke loose on turn 4, as Cindric slowed at the front of the group of cars head for pit road. Michael Annett was turned sideways across traffic in a 9-car wreck that wiped out Annett's number 1 Chevrolet and the number 9 of junior motorsport teammate Noah Gragson, defending race winner. The cars of Bailey Curry, Greg Alding, and Colby Howard also suffered race-ending damage.
Stage 1 winner Brandon Jones saw his fortunes change dramatically, coming to the checkered flag to end Stage 2. Jones steered his number 19 Joe Gibbs Racing Toyota up the track to side draft the outside lane, but when he returned to the bottom lane, his attempted block on Myatt Snyder's Chevrolet came too late, and Jones spun across the nose of Snyder's car. After a wild slide through infield grass soaked by rain earlier in the day, Jones rocketed back onto the track and slammed nose first into the outside wall. Cody Roper's Camaro smashed into Jones's car at high speed, and the spinning Toyota clipped the Chevrolet of Alex Labbe. All 3 cars were destroyed, and NASCAR red flagged the race to clear the debris from the track. Moffitt won the second stage with Dillon and Cindric 2nd and 3rd behind him. Only 22 of the 40 cars that started the race were running at the finish of a race that featured 9 cautions for a total of 43 laps.
Venturing Motorsports last month pinned Corey Haim as his full-time driver in the ARCA Menard Series for 2021. His first task was to attempt to extend the team's 4-race winning streak at Daytona National Speedway with a victory in Saturday's Lucas Oil 200 driven by General Tire. He did just that. 18-year-old Haim led off his VMS teammate, pole sitter Drew Dollar, on the last lap to win the ARCA Menard Series season opener at the 2.5-mile tri-oval in Daytona Beach, Florida. Haim, who won the last season finale at Kansas Speedway during his first series victory, picked up right where he left off in the number 20 Toyota.
A caution with 4 laps to go set up Saturday's overtime finish, with Heim, the leader, taking the top lane and Dollar on the bottom. The latter let the former move to the inside so the duo could work together in the draft. Even with Dollar's car damaged and lacking power steering, the plan worked to perfection, and VMS ended the race with a 1-2 finish. Defending series champion Brett Holmes finished third ahead of Ty Gibbs in fourth and Kyle Sieg in fifth. Derek Lancaster, Tanner Gray, Andy Jankowick, Jack Wood, and Sean Corr rounded out the top 10.
Let's go ahead and take another short musical break, see if I can get this little musical thing figured out. And then we'll move on to our next segment of the show. Let's go with short track racing, shall we? Once again, that was Short Track Racing by Ron Pastana and the Pit Crew. Ricky Carmichael is considered by many to be the best dirt bike racer ever to imprint tire tracks in dirt. His sport has designated him as its GOAT. And after 5 Monster Energy Supercross titles and 48 wins, he retired from professional Supercross racing in 2007. He went on to ARCA and NASCAR racing, while also amassing 5 X Games medals. Last weekend, the 2021 Supercross Series hosted Round 7 inside Camping World Stadium in Orlando, Florida. Carmichael was there, but he called the race action and offered insights during the Saturday night broadcast. Since 2019, he's been on-camera expert for the Monster Energy Supercross Series from inside the broadcast booth. 2021 will mark the first time Supercross Series has returned to Orlando venue since the legendary 2007 Orlando race, Ricky Carmichael's Supercross Swan Song.
The battle that night in 2007 brought out what Carmichael has said was the best Supercross riding he's ever done. The lack of ego in that statement rides in the fact that he didn't win, having won 2 races and finishing second in the 4 other races he contested that year. Orlando would be his final laps. He had no designs on another title. The event pitted him against his 2 main career rivals, James Stewart and Chad Reed. Reed jumped into the early lead with Carmichael soon right behind him and Stewart 2 spots back. Within 2 laps of the 20-lap main event, the 3 top racers had gapped the field. 4 laps later, it was down to 2 as Stewart gained and lost tenths of a second on the retiring defending champion dead ahead.
Carmichael didn't need to win that night. He was competing only in select events for his final year of competition. He had nothing left to prove on a motorcycle. Equally, James Stewart had little gain with the win over Carmichael. 3 additional points over his title rival Reed weren't worth the risks he was taking. Supercross racers do every time their starting gate drops, the 2 of them threw down. It was a brilliant rep to a legend's Supercross career. And that legend is still part of the sport, up in the booth where he's showing another talent. For race fans in Orlando, tickets are still available in restricted attendance pod-style seating arrangement. I'm actually going to be there on Saturday night, thanks to our next guest, Sean Brennan. For all other sports fans, the race this weekend is broadcast live on the Peacock app and on NBC Sportsnet. The race starts at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and there will surely be a highlight reel of the greatest of all time's last previous visit to the stadium. As I say, our next guest scheduled for this evening is Sean Brennan, Public Relations Manager of Motorsports for Feld Entertainment Incorporated. He's tried to call in twice already, and unfortunately I missed his last call because I was concentrating on the script here, and I thought I'd have a few more seconds than I did. But hopefully he'll be back on the line momentarily. We can go ahead and get him on the show. As I said, he's the reason why I'm going to get to go to the Supercross event there, and he is connecting right now. So here we go. Hello, Sean. How you doing this evening?
I am fantastic. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep, I sure can. You're working out all the bugs, aren't you?
I'm trying to. It's a new thing for me tonight, but it seems to be working okay now. So hopefully, knock on fake wood here for a second, and hopefully everything goes well.
Yeah, I apologize. I wasn't sure exactly when I was supposed to call in, so I think I was a little premature. So I hope that the ringing doesn't come across to all the listeners. But
I think it sort of formed a nice little background noise for a few seconds, but it works out.
There you
First
go.
Off, what can we expect to going into round eight this weekend?
Whew. Well, one, you're going to be here, so I think that's fantastic. We're so excited to be back here. I think that there's been a lot of things, and you already, mentioned everything with Ricky, with last week's race and the replica track. This is the start of the 250 Western Regional Championship. But I think what fans can expect is just amazing racing. We have a tight point battle in the 450 Premier class. With Ken Roxon, Cooper Webb, and Eli Tomac is still in the hunt. But my goodness, we're seeing some of the tightest racing, some of the best racing that we have seen in years. Every year we seem to go into the season and we say rich and deep field, and my goodness, it's true though. A racer like Marvin Musquin, who is a consistent podium guy, that 6th through 10th, a lot of premier class riders that are typical podium athletes are, finding themselves in between 6 and 10. So anybody that's coming to this race or watching it on Peacock or NBC Sports are going to see fantastic racing consistent with what we have had for the previous 7 rounds. But we are also very excited to get the Western Regional 250 guys going. Again, there are a lot of title contenders in that class. And the 250 class is just so fun to watch. These guys are young, they're hungry, and again, that's going to be a deep field as well.
I know Ken Roxon got off to a pretty amazing start here in the series this year, and he's been up and down sort of. He's finished in second a few times, and he's not quite meeting the expectations that some of the people in the media and some of the people seem to have thought he was going to be just run away with everything this year. Do you think he'll have a better weekend this weekend than he had this past weekend?
I do. Do not count out Ken Roxon. I think this is his year. And, just to take your audience back a little bit, he had 11 surgeries, on his left arm alone. And then after coming back from that, ended up having a hand injury, on his other side, his other arm, which, took him out for a second season. So there was at one point that, his doctors were, telling him he might not be able to lift a fork. So for him to be racing at this level is really just unbelievable. It is such a great sports story, not just a motorsport story or a supercross story, but just a sports story in general. For him to come back, and even if he was just, racing in 10th, we would be fortunate to have a star like Ken Roxon out there. But my goodness, he swept Indianapolis. He's already got 3 wins on the season. He holds the red plate. And my goodness, no, I think we are in for a real treat this year, to be honest with you. Now, don't get me wrong, Cooper Webb and Eli Tomac certainly have something to say about that. And, I was mentioning Marvin Musquin. I still think that Justin Barcia is probably going to win another one. I think Marvin Musquin has got at least one race win in him. So there are several racers that I think are going to be, vying for that number one spot. But Ken has really shown consistency as well, which I think is a key. When you race 17 races in a series and in a championship like this, consistency really plays into that. So, yeah, back to your question. I think Ken's our guy this year, but we still have a lot of racing to do.
You mentioned some of Roxon's injuries in the past. I know that the highlights from last week was the amazing roll and accident there that Christian Craig had. What's his update going into this week? Is his wrist okay, and will he be able to compete?
Yeah, he is absolutely fine. But my goodness, what a gutsy ride he had, right? With him competing in the Eastern Regional Championship, he now has 10 weeks to heal before they come back and race in Salt Lake City. So he knew that going in, that, boy, if I can get through the pain and get through this race, that I will have time to heal and let my body heal. But, man, we cannot discount the amount of pain that he went through. And especially your hands and your wrists, man, to hold on to the motorcycle. They are so fast. They're so powerful. And my goodness, you have to have your hands. So he really gutted it out, and he did it for the right reasons. But, yeah, he's going to be absolutely fine. I do not believe it requires surgery. But the biggest thing is that he now has a break in action that he can let his body heal and come back strong for the final 2 races that he'll compete in Salt Lake City.
You mentioned that this weekend the Western Regional 250 SX class will be kicking off. Who are the people to watch in that series, that particular class?
There's a lot, and there's veterans in that class, but we have a stacked 250 rookie class that I think is going to be really fun to watch. Cameron McIndoe and Jordan Smith. Jordan Smith, if your audience remembers, he races for Pro Circuit Kawasaki, and he got injured last year. North Carolina native, which I know a lot of NASCAR folks, being in North Carolina, a lot of your listeners, I'm sure familiar with a lot of those guys up there. But Jordan definitely somebody that's been back on the bike, has a great machine, a great team behind him. And he's going to be competing with his teammate, Cameron McAdoo. There's been a lot of buzz about the Lawrence brothers. Jet Lawrence actually won Orlando last weekend as his final race before the break. But his older brother Hunter is now competing in the West as well. So he is definitely somebody to watch out for. And sticking with the brothers, we have Jeremy Martin on a brand new team with Monster Energy Star Racing Yamaha. And his older brother, Alex Martin, is also competing. So the Martin brothers are certainly both title contenders as well. In the rookie class, my goodness, Jarrett Fry, Seth Hammaker, Nate Thrasher, Ty Masterpool. There are a lot of names that have been consistent winners, all the way through their amateur careers. And we're excited to get these boys out here for their first pro debut here on Saturday. But it's going to be a lot to watch, and these kids are a lot of fun. But most importantly, there is a deep, deep, talent pool as well. These kids are amazing.
Well, let me go ahead and throw you out to my co-host, Mykkal Mulalley-Kapalo, who has some questions for you, and then I'll come back. I got a couple more as well.
Okay.
So my first question for you this evening, what are the steps someone would generally take to become a public relations manager?
Ooh, great question. My road has been, more crooked than straight for sure. I think a lot of people, are the same thing. But, one, I would say definitely go to school, go to college, learn how to write, learn how to communicate. You cannot be in this job without being able to communicate. Writing is so critical. I took a typing class when I was in high school, and that was probably one of the most critical classes, is actually learning how to type. And that sounds so, so weird, when you've philosophy and history and calculus and all of these, obviously great subjects, but typing has ended up becoming and being, a consistent skill that I have needed my entire life. And all of us, now with computers, everything we do is about typing. But you have to learn how to write. I was a mass communications major, and I know that's kind of a broad stroke. But I think, you could be an English major, you can obviously go for journalism, you can go for public relations, advertising, marketing. All of these things really do play into the public relations role. But you absolutely have to be good with people. So if you're introverted and not very social, this is not the job for you. But yeah, I would say, learn to write, learn to communicate, learn the tools, learn social media, but also follow writers in different types of media. Obviously, I'm in sports and motorsports in particular, but I think a big part of it, is the other side of it is reading as well. You have to like to read, storytelling. All of these different things, are part of, being good in this role.
And what are some of the duties you perform as a public relations manager?
Every day is different. I am responsible for all of the media for Supercross. So, that encompasses everything from local media, where we are trying to sell tickets to a single event, to all of our what we call endemic media. We're fortunate that we have, just like NASCAR, and I know you guys are familiar with, all of the media, you guys, including being one that follows NASCAR, we probably have about 35 beat writers / beat photographers, if you will, that are at every race, shooting, in writing and doing, all of the storytelling. So taking care of all of them and making sure that they obviously have everything that they need to pitching stories, but then national media as well. We're always trying to grow this sport. So there are strategies for all of these different types of media that you deal with. There's a lot of strategy that goes into all of this. And whether it's a local TV station coming out to do an interview about the event or doing a bigger, broader kind of feature type story on a Ken Roxon in USA Today, these are all things that we do in the matter of, a routine week, if you will. So there are some bigger picture things that you're, trying to focus on, to grow the entire sport. But I'm also the primary liaison with all of the teams and the athletes. So I have a hand in just about every interview that gets done with this sport. And that you talk about, what it takes to be in this role, get used to long hours because I'm still at the stadium right now. I don't even know what time it is, but I'm at the stadium now. And this is routine. When we're in season, it is 7 days a week. As we get deeper into the week, Thursday, Friday, and of course race day, those are easily 18-hour days. And then on top of that, I write, so you're always working on press releases. You're always working on, different pitches. And I love to write stories as well. So, every day is different. And I think that that's really why I love this role and love this job so much. But yeah, it encompasses a lot of different areas.
And I think I might know the answer to this question, but what is your favorite form of motorsports that you follow?
It is definitely of the two-wheel variety. No, I absolutely love, motorcycle racing, obviously Supercross, but, the Outdoor Pro Motocross Championship I love as well, MXGP. But I do follow, obviously, NASCAR, drag racing, IndyCar. We have a lot of friends, at different speedways, around the country that we stay in touch with. And, they follow us, we follow them, F1. So there are, I love motorsports. I love racing. What ends up when we're in season, it's hard to follow everything, though, is I think the biggest trick. But no, man, with these athletes, whether you're, racing NASCAR or you're racing Supercross, with these athletes, put their bodies through to be able to do what they do and the intensity at which they do their jobs and perform is absolutely amazing. And I think that, television has made it look very easy. But my goodness, don't be surprised. These guys are thoroughbreds. No matter what you're racing, they're thoroughbreds and they're at the top of their sport. So I would say a little bit of everything. That was a long way to get to a little bit of everything, I guess.
And my final question for you this evening, and I'm sure you have many answers for this one. What is the most rewarding part of your line of work?
Man, rewarding. Nothing beats pitching a story and prepping for a story and then seeing that story be told and, get published or told, whether it's, a TV show or a USA Today spread or whatever that case may be. There's such a thrill in that, especially when you're pitching different things. I still get a kick, it doesn't really matter if it's, the Orlando Sentinel, newspaper, doing a big spread on Supercross, and or if it's, a national broadcast, Good Morning America, where we're featuring one of our athletes. But I think that is it. It really does come back to the true, nature of what we do, and we're trying to tell stories. And no matter at what level we do that, it is always a win, and it is always a rush, when we see the fruits of that labor.
I know that the Monster Energy Supercross is part of the Feld Entertainment umbrella. Have you ever worked with any other of the divisions of Feld Entertainment?
Yeah, I actually started out working on Monster Jam. So when I was first hired, I was in a dual role, if you will, on Monster Jam as well as on Supercross. And then in our department, we are, very tight knit, group. So I sit in a lot of meetings for our other brands. Feld Entertainment and the Felds being, privately owned, and the family are still active in every aspect of the business. When we walk down the hallway, we can run into any one of the sisters as well as Kenneth Feld. So it's very key, and a big, part of their philosophy is being tuned into what other, brands and even other departments for that matter are doing. And that's really why the entire operation, moved to Palmetto, Florida, and we're all under one roof. But I still have a love for Monster Jam. Oh my goodness, there's nothing like those trucks. And, those machines are just so powerful. And again, we were talking, about, different drivers and things like that. It is amazing what these drivers can make those trucks do. And just in the last 3 years, the advancements that they have made with, balancing and the different tricks that they have done is absolutely mind-blowing. So again, a long-winded way to tell you yes. And I still have an affinity for Monster Jam as well.
I know that in the past, some of the riders from Supercross have gone on to other things in the motorsports world, including Ricky Carmichael had the brief stint there with NASCAR and ARCA. Are there any current riders who you think will have a future in four-wheeled motorsports?
Wow, that's a really good question. There are several of our retired athletes right now actually doing a four-wheel race coming up at the end of the month for Fight Club, which is going to be a pay-per-view race, dirt track racing. Ryan Dungey is part of it. Chad Reed is part of it. So that obviously is more for fun. Chad Reed is probably the closest right now. Last year he was racing, I believe it was for a Ferrari team. And he was doing that while he was still competing, obviously in Supercross. But I think he does really have his eyes set on four-wheel racing and is probably the closest of anybody to be able to commit and have the resources to go in that direction. So, I would say Chad Reed. And then, some of the others, it's funny because all of the young Supercross athletes that grew up with Monster Jam, consistently come to me and, oh my goodness, when my career's done here, I want to drive Monster Jam trucks. But I would say our current crop of athletes right now are so focused on winning a championship on two wheels that they're not even, really kind of thinking about the next steps. Justin Brayton is the oldest active racer we have right now. But everybody else is still really, relatively young, 24, 25, 26, 27. So they're still focused on their two-wheel career. And if they do have some hidden ambitions for four-wheel, they haven't, really revealed that as of yet.
This weekend you're running at a reduced capacity as well as throughout most of the rest of the season. What is the rough percentage of capacity you're going to have this weekend at Camping World Stadium?
It keeps changing, and I think that that's the biggest thing is to realize that we are still in a pandemic, and it is ever changing. When we announced our schedule and we started initially selling tickets, we were at 25% capacity in most places. Houston, that quickly, went to 20 and then ended up going, down to actually like 15% by the time we got there. What we're trending now is back up. So that is good. The vaccine is helping. Wearing masks and social distancing is helping. I think we're all seeing the numbers start to decrease and states starting to stabilize. But as a general statement, we're probably at 20% still in most areas. Here we're about 20% in Orlando, and that's kind of been consistent with where we're going to be for Dallas, Texas, which will be next up after Daytona.
And if people are interested in getting tickets for the race this weekend, where's the best place for them to go?
Supercrosslive.com. Very easy. We have all of our fan wellness information there. We are doing a lot to keep fans safe. First and foremost, want everybody to know that. We were the first sport to really create a bubble, and we're certainly the first sport to finish our season in a bubble. So we have two very important goals this season, and that's one, to keep the fans safe, but two, keep all of our athletes and teams safe as well. So I would invite anybody that's potentially looking to come out to make sure you visit the fan wellness section of our website. But ticketing information, contactless shopping, everything that we are doing with each stadium can all be found at supercrosslive.com.
Well, once again, I'd like to thank you very much for inviting me out to the race this weekend. I look forward to attending and seeing what everything's all about there. And thanks a whole lot for coming on the show tonight. Great to talk to you.
You are welcome. Thank you for having me. And yes, enjoy. I believe you're bringing your dad, I believe.
Yep.
So, man, have fun. And I look forward to chatting with you afterwards.
Well, thank you very much. Have a great night.
You too. Thank you, guys.
Once again, that was Sean Brennan, the public relations manager for Feld Entertainment, specifically for Supercross. He has a really busy job, and he's got a lot of stuff going on. So it's great for him to take a few minutes tonight and come out and talk to us. Are you a race car driver, crew chief, pit member, track owner? Maybe you're just a huge fan of the sport. Contact either Mykkal Mulalley-Kapalo or myself to get your spot on the show. After all, you deserve your 15 minutes of fame, and we'd love to hear from you. We're going to be going a little bit long this evening, but I think that's a pretty good thing for our 200th episode, so it won't be too long. We do have a few more things to cover, so let's go ahead and keep going. And a stunning upset at the end of the action-filled race interrupted Daytona 500. Frontman Motorsports driver Mykkal McDowell claimed his first NASCAR Cup Series victory after charging the lead during a brutal multi-car wreck in Turn 3 on the final lap.
In fact, McDowell, who led only the final lap at the 2.5-mile Daytona International Speedway, is the 8th driver to get his first Cup win in the Great American Race. His victory is the third for Front Row Motorsports, all coming in the number 34 Ford with 3 different drivers: David Reagan at Talladega, Chris Buescher at Pocono, and McDowell at Daytona. Reigning series champion Chase Elliott finished second after contact between the Team Penske Fords of Brad Keselowski and Joey Logano ignited the final wreck, sending the Toyota of Kyle Busch rocketing into the outside wall. When NASCAR illuminated the caution lights, McDowell was in the lead over Elliott by a car length.
Austin Dillon ran third. Austin Dillon ran third, followed by Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin. Fell short in his attempt to win the record third straight at Daytona 500. Hamlin won the first 2 stages, but got lost in the lead during the final cycle of green flag pit stops when the small contingent of Toyotas got separated while exiting pit road. Hamlin took the lead in the second stage after a cycle of green flag pit stops and held it through the 5th caution of the race, which waved when Drogo's racing teammate Christopher Bell cut a left rear tire and spun into the Chevrolet of Ricky Stenhouse Jr.
At that point, Hamlin had led 58 laps, bringing his total of laps led in the Daytona 500 to 434, fifth of all time, and one ahead of Bobby Allison. Hamlin had led 34 consecutive laps to win Stage 1 after racing resumed on Sunday night. He finished with a race-high 98 laps led. On lap 14, before a long rain delay, off-center contact from Bell's Toyota to the rear bumper of Eric Almirola's Ford sent Almirola spinning near the front of the field, triggering a massive 16-car pileup that inexorably altered the complexion of the race.
Collected in the wreck were Ryan Newman, making his first Daytona 500 start since the devastating last lap wreck that put him in the hospital a year ago. Eric Jones in his first start in a points race for his new team, Richard Petty Motorsports. Daniel Suarez in his first race run with newly formed Trackhouse Racing, a joint venture between Justin Marks and rapper Pitbull. And pole winner Alex Bowman, whose number 48 Chevrolet was wiped out when Almirola shot up the track into the side of his car and rammed into the wall. Also heavily damaged in the melee were the cars of William Byron, Kurt Busch, Tyler Reddick, Brian Blaney, Chris Buescher, David Reagan, David Murray, and Matt DiBenedetto. To add insult to injury, nearby lightning strikes delayed the restart of the race, and heavy rains followed shortly thereafter.
5 hours and 40 minutes later, after the rain abated and the track dried, engines were refired at 9:07 p.m. and the race resumed with 24 cars on the lead lap. In his first points race for the new 23XI racing team co-owned by Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan, Bubba Wallace ran near the front of the pack throughout the race, but lost a lap with an unscheduled pit stop for a vibration on lap 178 of 200. Wallace was caught up in the last lap wreck and finished 17th. Kyle Larson ran 10th in his first trip in the number 5 Hendrick Motorsports Chevrolet. Austin Cindric's Strong Cup debut ended in the last lap wreck that claimed 3 Team Penske cars. Ryan Preece, Ross Chastain, and Jamie McMurray and Corey LaJoie claimed the 6th through 9th finishing positions, respectively.
The action at Daytona National Speedway doesn't stop as the track's iconic road course will host NASCAR's 3 top-tier series beginning tomorrow. With a triple-header weekend, it takes place February 19th to the 21st. The NASCAR Campbell Truck Series hits the 14-turn, 3.61-mile layout on Friday, February 19th. I'm actually going to be attending that race as well. It's going to be a busy racing weekend for my father and myself. With the NASCAR Xfinity Series on Saturday, February 20th, and the NASCAR Cup Series on Sunday, February 21st. Tickets start at $59 for adults for the Cup race, with kids starting at only $10. Kids 12 and under are free on Friday and Saturday in select sections.
For more information, log on to www.DaytonaInternationalSpeedway.com or call 1-800-PITSHOP.
I was going to add a little bit of information about the fact that Kevin James is going to be at the race on Sunday for the NASCAR Cup Series event. He's going to be the Grand Marshal. He does have the new show, The Crew, that started on Netflix this week. I've actually watched 5 episodes of that show. It's not too bad. For those of you who are big-time NASCAR fans who know how things generally operate behind the scenes, and even if you're just a big-time race fan, you'll enjoy the show. But it's a little grating at times. Some of the humor is a little bit really. It's actually really, really lowball humor, and it gets a little old. But overall, it's a really fun show. It gets better with time. The first episode was not as good as the 5th one, if that makes it any better. And it has a total of 10 episodes slated for the season so far. They've been released on Netflix, so be sure to check that out. And it's a pretty cool show, and it'll be interesting to see how much fun Kevin James is able to have there on Sunday with the restrictions that they have at the track. There are a lot of restrictions at Daytona this weekend for the event, including the spaced out seating, which has become the norm over the past year or so. Plus, they've got restrictions on how to even get to the seats. They've got timing restrictions, they've got parking restrictions, and it'll be different to see how they run the race. This will be the first full race that I've been to at Daytona since last year at the Rolex 24. We did go to the Roar before the Rolex 24, which was cool, but it was definitely a low attended event there. So interesting to see how that goes. Once again, we'd like to thank all of our guests we had on this evening. It was a little bit of a rough start to our season here in episode 200, but it seems to have worked out pretty well. I'd like to thank Deborah Hunt, who was unable to join us live this evening, She is still here in the chat room, and I appreciate her support tonight. We'd also like to thank her assistant author there, co-author, Scott Murray, who was able to join us tonight, and that was great. And we'd like to thank Sean Brennan from Monster Energy Supercross for coming on the show this evening. Be sure to check out past episodes of Thursday Night Thunder, as well as the other shows on the Speedway Digest Radio Network at speedwaydigest.podbean.com. I went through all the different shows that are on the Speedway Digest Radio Network last week, but I'll just briefly mention them again. The main show is, of course, the Pit Stop with Tim Spain and Stephen Wilson. I'm not sure if that's going to return in some form later this season or not. I'm hoping it does, but I do know that Stephen Wilson has another project that he's working on that we talked to him at the last episode of last season in early December. We also have the other shows on the Speedway Digest Radio Network, which was the Speedy Digest. It was one of the first shows that was on the network. There's the show by racer Stephen Spencer Boyd, which you can listen to, as well as some other programs on the network. Be sure to check those out. Also, you can check out this show on Facebook by searching for Speedway Digest Thursday Night Thunder in the search bar, or simply by going to facebook.com/SD Thursday Night Thunder. I also invite you to read the articles covering all aspects of motorsports at speedwaydigest.com. You can also be sure to check out Mykkal Mulalley's fan page on Facebook. Be sure to look at that. There's some great information about the show on there. Also, some interviews from people she's interviewed in the past, from the National Hot Rod Association, as well as other different series, so be sure to check those out. In addition, if you're a fan of South Florida and who isn't, be sure to check out the latest news and information about our slice of paradise at my site, Favorplum's Fantastic Finds. There's been a lot of great stuff on there lately, a lot of stuff about the Super Bowl, of course, some Valentine's Day stuff, and some other stuff about the things that are coming up soon from the Valley, Florida, the Palm Beach Opera, and a bunch of other restaurant news and theme park information as well. We found on Facebook, on Twitter, by searching at PB Happening is the easiest way to find that, and by heading to Favorplum's fantasticfinds.wordpress.com. That's FABORPLUMBS, fantasticfinds.wordpress.com.
Thank you for listening, and we look forward to seeing you again next week in the Thunderdome as we discuss the major issues in the world of modern auto racing.
Have a great night, and thanks again.